Hey, this is the fourth part. So, this is about the end of Antorus, Agrimar and Argus. Agrimar was a real milestone for not only my guild after what we went through to clear this boss, but also myself. Being a DK, you are responsible for ad management, and you needed at least 2 DKs to do this boss. One of our tanks and I, sometimes we had, one of the tanks and I were DKs. Sometimes we had 3 depending on if the guy could make it, but anyway. So the first major problem were the ads. The other DK and I had to communicate which ads we were going to take. And the issues with the communications was I wasn't using push to talk, or I wasn't used to using it, and I had never used it until I joined Triggered. So the raid leader ended up giving me voice activity. Another reason was the marks. We didn't mark the ads we were going to take, and when we did eventually mark the ads, it would make the process a lot easier. So the DKs had to take in an alternate number. We had to alternate the number of stacks according to healer cooldowns. So every time we pulled an ad in, it would explode, and we had to keep the debuff ticking every time to get rid of the ads as fast as possible. So you'd always have at least 1 stack, and sometimes you had 2 if we had healer cooldowns. In the last phase, you had to guide the boss around the platform, because the ads would be coming in, and it was really hard to control the ads in the last phase. And also because moving the boss around, so DKs are slow as hell. So as the boss was being moved around and DKs being slow, it was really hard for a DPS DK to grip one of the ads in, because we also had to move away from the boss because of the AoEs. So when the mechanic came in where you soak the big, when he brings his sword down on the raid, and you have to face the boss towards the raid and soak. So it would go something like, so there were 2 groups of DPS and healers, and then it would go onto the tank. And every time we went onto the tank, there would be, after the tank got hit, there'd be a circle. And if you stood inside this, and there was a pretty big circle for melee anyway. So if you stood in this circle, you're stunned. And if you get stunned, you're pretty much dead, or you might die. And if you're not dying, then you're losing DPS. And the last phase was when we really needed to push the DPS, because there was only so much time we'd have before the ads reached the boss, even if we're trying our best to control them. So ad management was really hard on the last phase. I think we might have saved hero for, I'm not sure when we saved hero actually. I remember we changed when we used hero just to test it out. We also tried taking 3 stacks of the debuff, but 3 stacks is too much damage, even for a DK. And DKs have a nice amount of defensives, and we had health cookies. We had 2 warlocks. I think you need a warlock in this fight as well, because the warlocks would be able to slow every single ad, and being able to slow the ads meant we had so much more time to deal with them. Or manage with them, rather. the healers had to dispel the ads as well when they came in. So on the boss mechanic, where you had to turn the boss and face it whatever way, so there was a big circle at the end of it, and if the ads were inside of this circle as he was casting, or if you got the cast off onto the ads would be empowered and you'd die. Because the ad would speed up and they'd do more damage once they reached the boss. So they had to be dispelled. So having a priest was really... Yeah, for the mass dispel, having a priest was really important. Just to give you more leeway with the ads. If they ever reach the circle. Okay, so in the early stages of progressing this boss, yeah. So there was a night where I knew I wasn't going to perform because I woke up at a ridiculous time, and I was really tired. So I was falling asleep during the raid, and I made a lot of mistakes because of it. So like pots, the prolonged power pots, and I think I wasn't using my defenses properly. I mean, I just managed to perform the mechanics, you know. And this was the stage where I was learning to pull in the ads. I was learning to pull in, or witch ads. Learning to pull in witch ads. I was getting used to the whole using the push to talk thing, because this was when I really needed it. The raid leader ended up talking to me at the end, and there's not much to say about it. Even though I had the option to, well, I might have had the option to ditch the raid, I'm not sure. But I didn't want to, because I didn't want to ditch the raid like an hour or two before. And I knew how important of a role I played on the fight. So I wasn't sure if they could find another DK either, so... And if they couldn't find another DK, then the raid would be called off, because you wouldn't have enough DKs to do the fight. So after we got a hang of the fight, it was mainly just silly mistakes, and the last phase, which was the kiting, that gave us problems. My understanding of the fight was that the ads, so in the last phase, the ads spawned on top of all the ranged DPS and healers, and the way the ranged were positioned was, it was too close to the boss. I think they were like near the center. So if the boss was on the edge of the platform, the ranged would be in the center, and that distance was not enough. It wasn't enough to manage the ads. So what we did was we moved that group of ranged and healers to all the way to the opposite end, so they wouldn't be able to hit the boss. And also, you still had to manage the ads, so you had to pull them in all the way from the other side of the room, which meant one of the DKs had to go to the center, and then another DK would have to be on top of the boss, so it would be a double grip. Because if you didn't do it, you'd be overwhelmed by the ads, and the ads would explode whenever they wanted, and you'd easily get 3 stacks if you did it like that, without proper ad management. So once we killed the boss, like, it was a great feeling, because well, it took us, it was a big test, you know, especially when the amount of time we took killing this boss. So it took us, I think it took us at least 200. I think it took us maybe just over 250, around 250. 250 wipes. We took a picture and it was a good day. We killed the boss before it got nerfed as well, so that's nice. Anyway, moving on to Argus. Argus was a hard fight, like Agramar, and also at this stage we were burning out, or some people were anyway, and the feelings of stress were really bearing down on some people. It was starting to show. Yeah. So the encounter was really unforgiving. Not only did mechanics have to be performed well, there was also a DPS check. So you had to min-max a lot of stuff. There was a debuff, so 2 people would be chosen, or I think 2, maybe 3. 2 people would be chosen to and it was at random, so you had to spread. And the 2 people that were chosen randomly there was a box around them, and if anyone else stood in this box but them, the other people would take, there'd be a stacking debuff, and if you took 3 stacks, you were pretty much dead, even through defensives. So it was really important that you pre-spread before the mechanic came. And if you took 2 or 3 stacks, you could survive 3 stacks if you got spot healed. So, which also had to be communicated. And I think there was a lot of externals to be thrown around. So calling for external as a DPS wasn't a bad idea, since the healers never really used them. Or they didn't use them until the 3rd phase, I believe, I'm not sure. Because that's when the tanks died and you had to go to the tree, and that's when you saved all your combo reses. And that's when you spent... so that's when everyone died and revived. Because the 3rd phase was really hard. And that's how the phase was done, so... Yeah, so the DPS check. The orbs were crucial, obviously, because it was 2,000... Well, it was 4,000 worth of stats per stack, and you could get up to 5 stacks. So that's like 20,000. So that's a lot of stats. And not having the stacks, not picking up the orbs was a big deal, because you wouldn't make the DPS check without the orbs. And having the stacks fall off. So this was another problem. If you waited a bit before picking up an orb, the orb would last long enough so that you didn't have to pick up the next orb as soon as it spawned. Because if you picked up the first orb instantly, and let's say you have to move for a mechanic, or you're not close enough to the next orb that you need, the first orb would time out, and so you would only go back to 1 stack. But if you waited, so I think the orb lasted 10 seconds. If you waited for like 5 or 7 seconds, you'd have enough time to move to the next orb without it timing out, so it'd stack. Another thing was, if you picked up the opposite orb that you didn't need, and then you moved to the orb you did need, the debuff would switch, or the buff would switch. So you'd always have... So this is only relevant to the first orb that drops, because the first 2 orbs that drop are really close to each other. So you can change, but you can only change once. So you can pick 1 orb and then you can pick the other, but you can't go back and pick the other one, because even if you ran over it, it wouldn't register. You know. So the DPS was important because the fight was really long as well. It was like 12 or 13 minutes long. So in theory, you could hear her on pull, and then you could hear her later again. This is what we that's what we did, because we wanted to speed through the first phase. But we saved hero for the 3rd phase. because that's how difficult the third phase was. Rather than having two heroes in one fight, we saved hero so that we could only use it once, and we could only use it on the third phase. And if you didn't use it in the third phase, you use it in phase 1 and the fourth phase. And the fourth phase was basically the boss standing in the middle doing nothing, or hitting the tanks rather. Oh, that was one more thing. Changing hero. So the third phase. Well, before I get to the third phase, the second phase was quite easy. The second phase was just heroic mechanics with the bombs. So you had to move out, you had to move in. Not moving out with a bomb, like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a wipe, because some people would still be alive. And because that phase was so lax, because the only mechanic you really had to deal with was the bombs. And the bombs were really simple to deal with. So third phase was hard because, let's see. So there were scythes. There was a wave of scythes. 2 waves of scythes would spawn around the room, and they would sweep across it. So they'd stand at the end or the side of a room, and then they'd spin, and that's how you know it was gonna go. And so it would just zoom across the other side of the room. And if you got hit by one of these scythes, you'd die. You'd die straight away. Well, not straight away, because like the initial damage would take a chunk of your health, and then it would give you a ticking dot, and the dot was so, I think it was like 1,000,000 damage, probably more. I think it was more, because I'm not sure actually, but it was a lot of damage. Every time I got hit by a scythe, you'd die, because there was other mechanics as well. So there were the orbs, these orbs that would focus on the player, and a tank would have to run. So I think we had 3 tanks, and you'd have 1 tank running around, soaking the orbs that would spawn like a distance away, and the orbs would focus like a DPS. So so you had a tank running around soaking these orbs, and also I think the other 2 tanks that were tanking the boss, they were taking lots of damage as well, because I'm not sure actually, but yeah. So this was the phase where we were using CRs, and the chains. There were 2 chains. So during the fight, these chains would latch onto people, so they'd spawn out of nowhere, and it was 2 random people, and you had to pop the chains at a certain time. There were 2 chains as well, so 2 people had to break them, and you break them by moving away from, because it would anchor you to a point, and if you moved away from the anchor, it would, if you moved like 30 yards, it would pop the chain, and the entire raid would take a ticking dot. And this was when the healer cooldowns had to come in as well. So with the healer cooldowns, with the scythes, like there was a lot of damage, and it was impossible to get through the third phase without someone dying. Even if it was even if they were supposed to die, yeah, it was basically impossible to get through this phase. Also because we had the tree, so everyone died. I think it was halfway through phase 3. Everyone died. So, and then everyone stepped onto the tree so that they could be revived. Yeah, and then you carried on for a little bit. The mechanics carried on for a little bit, and then it was into phase 4. So we killed the boss after the artifact trait boost came. So normally I think people had like anywhere between 80 and 85 traits on their artifact weapon. But there was a patch that came and everyone had like more than 130 traits. And the traits were a big deal because it gave everyone like more than 10% DPS increase. That's a big boost. So when we came back to killing the boss after having the traits, it was really anticlimactic because we killed the boss in one try on the first pull. We went, God. So, yeah, after all our hard work, like, the boss was a smooth sailing. It was an easy boss after we had the traits. So, yeah. And that was that. We took a picture. I used the wrong set as well. I was using a tanking set, so I didn't have any of my legendaries or my stats. God. Well, that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening. I'll probably make a video once we've cleared some mythic bosses in BFA. But the issue is a lot of old players are returning. So we have 37 people wanting to raid. And obviously can't fit 37 people. And another thing was that no one's spot was guaranteed. Whether you raided in Legion or not, no one was guaranteed a spot, so I'll have to see what happens. Anyway, goodbye.